Welcome back. Happy December, Richard.
It is December, December 2020.
It's arrived. Part of me wants to say finally. Part of me wants to say already.
Well, a question for you, Dr. Berney. Did 2020 go by quickly or slowly?
Yes.
Right.
It seemed like it was going by very, very slowly, and then times when it's just, I can't believe it's already December.
People come in and they say, I don't know what happened to October and November.
Right.
It seemed like March went on forever, or April went on. And so did 2020 fly by, or did it crawl past us, or crawl over us or something? Yeah. But here we are in December, and you know what that means?
Yes, it means, it means the holidays.
It means the holidays, right?
It means that we're getting ready to conclude this year and hopefully get started on thinking about next year.
Right.
And hopefully next year will be a lot better, just globally, nationally, internationally.
Right. But you're almost afraid to hope, right? I mean, hope springs eternal. Thomas Jefferson famously said, faith is 3/4 hope, so we're hoping that 2021 will be better. The vaccines look promising. And of course, we have an anti-vax movement in this country. So there'll be we have to have another controversy. But it looks like the vaccine is arriving just in time. And everybody's expecting a surge in cases with the holidays. We didn't promise. We suggested that we might move away from COVID and into some other topics, but COVID keeps insinuating itself into our world. Right. And the latest thing, of course, are the vaccines and the surge. And speaking of the surge, the Thanksgiving surge has not been calculated yet. Right. And so we don't know exactly what effect the travel and extra socializing will mean in terms of the the numbers, the increases, if there is any, if there is an increase. We haven't calculated Thanksgiving numbers, and we move into probably the more significant gathering time of the year, which is the Christmas season, the last 2 weeks of this year.
Right. Yeah, it was to be another week or so, I'm sure, at least, before we see anything that resulted from Thanksgiving,
right.
Thanksgiving get-togethers and everything, just from a numbers perspective.
Right.
But that said, over the course of the past week, we hit a few records.
Exactly. Yeah.
We have a record number of hospitalizations. Mm-hmm. Even here in our local area, or the county that where we live, has had a record number of cases recently. And so there is a surge, there is a significant increase in the number of cases that we're documenting. But at the same time, it's interesting to hear people talk about, returning, kind of doing things and returning to life as normal. There was a recent article in WebMD where they, and it was actually just before Thanksgiving, but it was kind of talking about the holidays in general, that said that 30%, 1 in 3 parents say that gathering for the holidays was worth the risk of COVID.
It was worth the risk.
It was worth the risk. So 30% said that they would gather for the holidays despite the risk of COVID. And so, with those types of perspectives, and certainly there's lots of people with those kinds of perspectives, it's not all that surprising that we're having a surge.
Well, there's another article that just appeared this past week, and it was about how we make decisions during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that they said, one of the things the author said was that if you don't know anybody, if you're lucky enough not to know anyone with this disease, and
Right.
you haven't encountered it personally, you're likely to you're less likely to social distance and wear a mask because you just don't, it's the proximity of the threat
Right.
that the people, and they say, I don't see this disease. I don't know anybody who has it. I don't know anybody who's gotten it. I don't know anybody who's died of it. It's not that it's a hoax, it just doesn't affect you. And
Right.
so proximity is a determining factor in the decisions you make. So for families who haven't experienced this disease, I think it's going to be business as usual.
Absolutely. And you know, I suppose that you and I are, and many, many others, of course, but you and I are in that interesting demographic where we've had people that are very close to us
Right.
who have who have had it and who have
Right.
struggled with it,
Mhm.
and so, you know, perhaps that's one of the reasons why it is difficult, for the most part, for us to venture into some other topics, because it is such a it does hit so close to home,
Right.
for us as we think about, you know, what
Mhm.
this can do to people, and,
Right.
you know, as we talked about the other week, the long-term effects of this.
Right. Right. So we're hoping that, the Thanksgiving gatherings and now the Christmas gatherings don't result in a rapid increase in infections. And the problem, of course, is that hospitals, healthcare providers, and the buildings, the hospitals they work in, could get overwhelmed by just the sheer numbers of people who are going to be sick.
Right, absolutely. I mean, you know, there were that was one of the big records that was surpassed this past week, right? The number of hospitalizations,
Right.
over
I mean,
100,000 hospitalizations.
yeah, there is a limited capacity. I mean, there's a finite capacity of hospitals around the country.
Right.
And when the pandemic first started, we saw this surge in New York. And so healthcare providers were able to rush to New York. We brought in reinforcements. It's like when we have a hurricane here, we get electrical workers from around the country who can come here. Or you get fires in California, or hurricanes in the South, or tornadoes in the Midwest. You can rush the workers to that. The problem now is that every region of the country is experiencing a surge. And so you don't have the resources to redistribute to the hotspots.
Right, and you know, in here in the United States, but other countries as well, they're creating makeshift
Right.
uh,
Exactly.
medical facilities, and you know, those are so limiting because
Right.
they don't have all the resources that they need.
Yeah,
And
I don't think that, none of us want to die. We don't like to think about that, but I can't think of anything more gruesome than being in a portable morgue somewhere, in a portable storage facility while
yeah,
they make room to bury you somewhere. Talk about an existential crisis.
yeah,
And so it is. It brings up some pretty troublesome
yeah,
scenarios. So yeah,
absolutely.
so be careful. The message is be careful. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know, as we come into the holidays, and we talked about this a little bit just before Thanksgiving, but you know, now more than ever, because there's only a couple of weeks left of school before we're out for the winter
Mhm.
break. You know, Christmas is less than
Mhm.
2 weeks away.
Yeah.
And then we have, you know, all of the other holidays and all the other get-togethers and things like that that are coming up. Um, all of these things are stressful in and of themselves. We
Right.
talk about this, you know, every year we do at least a podcast or two sometimes
Mhm.
on managing the stress
Right.
associated with the holidays. And this year, you know, the stress associated with the holidays is only exaggerated even more because of the pandemic and because of all of the other things happening
Right.
in the world right now. And so, you know, I think it is very important for us to talk about some ways to manage some of this stress so that
Mhm.
we don't become so overwhelmed that we deteriorate. We've talked many times on the podcast about how stress, um, you know, stress has detrimental effects on our physical body, and it decreases our immune system, or you know, weakens our immune system. It causes inflammation and lots of other things. And so if we are overly stressed at the same time that there's this
Mhm.
increased risk for, you know, being exposed to this virus, um, our risk for contracting the virus, our risk for becoming very sick
Right.
is is even higher. So we have
An increase, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was thinking as I was, today's December the 6th.
Right.
Tomorrow's December 7th, a date. And you wonder what was the effect if you were, for people who were alive in when Pearl Harbor occurred, and many people still are, who were there, and you think, what effect did that have on their holiday? I mean, it was remote, it was very far away, but yet you knew, because on December 7th, that was an act. We went to war in December of 1941, and but that certainly would affect your holiday season a little. Not the way this one is affecting us, but every generation has its catastrophes, and this year, someday we'll talk about Christmas of 2020, and we have a couple of things going on. We have an election that won't end. We still have that insanity brewing in the background. There's that pot boiling on one of the front burners, that we have this election that won't end, and the stress that brings, and the anxiety and the anger. And then, as you suggested, we have the normal holiday stressors of what do you do with your family, how do you manage your family gatherings and all that business. And so and then you have the heightened emotions that come with every holiday season. And not to be maudlin, but I'm thinking, what happens with suicide rates and all that increase during any holiday season, and will it be worse this year? And then you have, what are we going to do with the pandemic protocol during the holiday season? We're supposed to social distance and wear masks and take all these precautions, but we have a holiday season, and will the desire to get together for the holidays outweigh our safety protocols? Right. And as you said, 35% of families believe that it was worth the risk to do so at Thanksgiving time.
Right. Absolutely. And then you think about, of course, working in the schools. I think often about the idea that there's going to be all this risk for exposure during the weeks that we're off for the holidays, Christmas and all, the winter break. And how many people are going to come back with it, but yet be asymptomatic still? But they're going to come into school with it and potentially spread it without even knowing. So
in January, so we have the risk in December, but that creates another risk in January and February.
Absolutely.
And those are the winter months when these viruses tend to proliferate anyway. So in a way, Christmas of 2020, December of 2020, turns out that's our biggest test yet. We've been through the 4th of July and Easter and the Sturgis motorcycle rally and Thanksgiving. Remember Halloween? Remember all the discussion about what are you going to do for Halloween? Right. Yeah. Well, this is an even bigger test, and it's also a chance to have our biggest failure. I think everybody agrees that December, especially the Christmas holiday season, is our biggest test yet, and if we don't get it right, could be our biggest failure yet. So, questions that are how are you going to do social distancing during the holidays? Are you going to keep up the same protocols, or what about wearing our favorite? Do I wear a mask or not? We saw that whole issue. Where do you wear a mask, and will you wear it with your kids? How do I avoid crowded places? People are going to shop. They're going to go to stores. They're going to go to places, grocery stores, gift shops. People are going to continue to go to crowded places. Here's an interesting one. How do I avoid people with whom I don't share living quarters? What we're told now is just be with people with whom you share a living space, right? So there are 4 or 5 people who share my living space, my daughter and my wife, Olive. What do I do with what does share a living space mean?
Right.
What if you go to work with somebody every day? Are they in your bubble?
Right. Well,
You know,
no,
I mean, how far does it extend? How many degrees of separation are we allowed?
right. Because if you think about it, many time for many of us, we spend more time with people at work than we do with the people at home.
Precisely. I spend more time with people at work than I do with my son
Right. Though he
because
lives with, right.
and he lives in the same house as I.
Right. And I think about, especially those who work in places where there's lots of people, a school, there are 740 students at one of the schools I work in.
Mhm.
Um, I see them multiple times a week.
You
And
spend,
of course, I don't see all 740 kids, but you walk into the cafeteria, there's over 100 in there at any given time.
an indoor space,
Mhm.
crowded, right? And yet, Bernie, what about a typical teacher?
Right.
Who's in her living space? She spends more time, I'm guessing, she spends more time, he or she spends more time with their students than they do with it, maybe as much with their students as they do with their own children.
Right.
And so when we say just stay with people with whom you share living quarters, unless you've been isolated with your family in your home bubble,
Right.
you probably have more people in that bubble than just your nuclear family, right?
Right. And it's just important that we all think about that. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's a bad thing. It just means that you have to think about the number of people that you're exposed to.
That's right.
And then that expands from there because you're exposed to that many people. Each of those people are exposed to that many people. And so
That's right.
it's exponential.
Mhm.
The math.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of decisions that we need to make. And so what advice do we give to those people who are, we're professionals, people come to us for advice. Um, or if you are a healthcare professional, nurse or doctor, psychologist, social worker, teachers are going to be asked. So what advice do you give those who are planning a holiday gathering? Whom do you include? What about masks? What about social distancing? What advice are you going to give others who are planning a holiday gathering? What advice do you give those who are living alone? I have many patients who live alone, and what advice do I want to give them about how to manage this especially difficult? In the past, if you were living alone, at least you could go to a store or a restaurant or a coffee shop and at least have some social interaction. This year, that's not even possible. So you have alone combined with social distancing and lockdowns
Right.
and store closings. What about those who are going to be alone for the first time?
Mhm.
That's a whole new challenge for them. That they've never had to deal with this before, but suddenly, I mean, my sister lives alone, and there's a possibility that this could be the first Christmas that she's spending totally by herself.
Right.
That's a new set of challenges for her. She's going to have to learn how to manage something she's never had to face before.
Yeah.
And then there are those who are grieving, who have lost loved ones for whatever reason.
Right.
I lost a cousin a few weeks ago. So it's a cousin by marriage. So my cousin is going to go through this holiday season with that weighing on her. So what advice do you give people like that?
Right.
What advice do you give to caretakers?
Right.
My God, their people are worn out. So what kinds of things can you tell people as to how to manage this month, and especially the last 2 weeks of this month?
Right. Absolutely. And you have all of those who, many people use the holidays as a way for remembrance for people that they lost, or people who, loved ones that have passed away. And so they get together and they talk about some of those things. And, this year they may not be able to do that. And so it's going to be challenging for dealing with a lot of those feelings and a lot of those stressors that, oftentimes we use family or friends or these get-togethers to cope with that stuff. So
That's right, because I can remember in my own family. I don't mean to be too personal here, but we lost a loved one, and in January of the year, and my parents decided to come to Florida for Christmas that year because they just didn't want to face
Right.
Christmas as it usually was. They weren't sure how to celebrate the holiday, that with that loss. And so that was the first time I came to Florida.
Right.
Was because of that, and so, um, you know, what do you do to manage these things? Because, we have the pandemic, but we have all of the other normal
Mhm.
things, the holiday stressors, grieving, loss, caretaking, that are occurring within the context of a pandemic. So
Mhm.
what do you tell people? Mhm.
Absolutely. So what as we were kind of looking into this, we found an article from Psychology Today. The link is to it is in the show notes,
Mhm.
and it talks about 15 different ways to de-stress, to figure out and think about how to cope with some of the stress. And the author talks a lot about COVID specifically, but many of these are strategies that you can use that will be really important to use even during that, whether it's during the holiday stress or COVID stress or whatever stress you may be experiencing. These are some of these are important strategies to use.
Right. Yep. So I like the first one as a healthcare professional.
Absolutely.
My goodness, ask for help.
Right. A lot of people will think that asking for help is we've heard this before, asking for help is a sign of weakness.
Right.
But asking for help is actually a sign of pretty good insight,
Mhm.
the way that we would look at it, right? Because
Right.
if you recognize that you need help and then you ask for help,
Mhm.
that's a really important skill to have.
Right.
Many people don't even recognize that they need help.
Right.
Uh, how many times do we have people will have whether it's teenagers or a spouse or something like that, they'll come in and say, well, I'm here because my mom made me come, or I'm here
Right.
because my husband said I needed to talk to
Mhm.
someone. And they don't even appreciate the stress that they're going through themselves. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, absolutely ask for help. Find someone to talk to or someone to give you some support.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That you reach points in your life where you just say, I'm just overwhelmed. I don't know how to sort this out. I'm incredibly sad. I'm incredibly angry. I'm incredibly lonely. When you hit those places, and we all do, goodness, ask somebody for help. You
Right.
know, I would I have never, I don't think I've ever regretted helping somebody who asked me for help.
Right.
It's what we do. It's what people do.
Right.
You want to be needed. You want to feel like that people can rely on you and depend on you.
Right.
So you are not an imposition. When life starts to overwhelm you, you are not an imposition. And by goodness gracious, ask for help from family members, from friends, and people will respond to that. So,
Absolutely.
yep.
And the second one, focuses on the idea of, and it's something that we often encourage folks to do.
Hmm.
And that is just anticipate the difference. Appreciate the reality that these holidays are going to be different than what you've had in the past.
Hmm.
Go ahead and start working to accept that, because if you are focused on, oh, this is what we have to do for Christmas, this is what we're supposed to be doing at this time of
Yeah.
year, and
Hmm.
when you focus on it that way and then that can't happen, that's going to be very distressing.
Right.
So
Right.
instead, accept the idea that it's going to be different,
Hmm.
and appreciate what you can do.
Right. You know what I want to do, Bernie? I want to become my own. I'm going to be my own little Amazon delivery boy. I'm going to put, I'm going to go run around, deliver packages to people's porches. I'm going to make mine different than Amazon's. I'm not going to have a little arrow, or whatever that thing is on there. What is that?
Smile. Hmm.
Is that a smile? Yeah.
Yeah, smile.
Smile headed in your direction. Yeah, I'm going to do my own little logo, and I'm going to drop boxes off on people's porches.
I can't wait to see what this logo looks like.
So just make it different. Here's an example. I typically don't celebrate New Year's Eve because I see no point. I don't care that it's a new year. New Year's Eve day is a Friday. New
Mhm.
Year's Eve is a Thursday. New Year's Day is a Friday. I'm probably going to work on Friday because it's a work day. There's no, I don't ever do much on New Year's Day. And so this year I might work that day, or I might but I might do something different
Right.
this New Year's Day than I've ever done in the past. It might be work, it might be,
Yeah.
I haven't golfed for 30 years, 40 years. And so I might go golfing that day. I don't know. I might take my daughter out and shoot guns or something.
You better make sure that you have golf clubs that are still
that still work.
Yeah,
I have to make my golf club. I have
that's
to make my club still work.
have
Right.
to be carbon dating.
I'll hit the golf balls and they'll burst into dust.
Would be fantastic.
Right. They were made in ancient Greece.
Yeah.
So no, I might do something different that day. So it's going to be different, but enjoy the difference. Okay. Do something that it will lift your spirits just a little. Don't sit around and be depressed because it's different. Make those days different and better. Okay.
Absolutely.
Don't sweat the small stuff. Number 3.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Just forget all the little things.
Right. Focus on the big things, the things that you that really affect your life. All these little things, just let them go.
Yeah.
Be okay with letting it go.
Right. I couldn't do this year. I couldn't find, so what? It doesn't matter. Okay. Everybody around you is also going to be feeling this.
Right.
Okay. So number 4 is everybody else is going to be a little out of sorts this year. So don't try to settle life issues. Don't take on the election. Don't take on politics. Don't take on anything like that, because everybody's going to be a little bit testy, a little bit tired, and just make your world a little kinder, softer, gentler place this holiday.
Absolutely. Just offer a little bit of grace and a little bit of understanding, and it'll be better. So
right. And number 5, you need a plan.
Right. And again, this is something that we talk about every year, that it's good, weeks ahead of time. Actually, we could have started this last month.
Right. Exactly.
Thinking about and outlining what you're going to accomplish and what you're okay with letting go, and be okay with letting those things go. Again, don't
one of my I had no idea what this holiday was going to look like, but one of my adult children has decided that she's going to try to come back home for the holidays. I don't know whether there's that question about, is she part of the family? She's going to come home. One of my great joys this holiday season is planning what to do while she's here, because in the few short days that we have her, I want to make sure that every day is wonderful. So part of this holiday season is about arranging the activities that my family will do while she's with us. Okay.
Right.
So that's my joy this year, is that somebody's going to be with us.
And part of that was number 5, planning, but part of that, number 6, is setting boundaries. Learning to say no, saying, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to, congregate with 50 of you guys. That would be a bad idea. And so,
it's a bad idea anyway, right?
Right.
Because you could die, right?
Just set some boundaries and accept it. And again, be okay with that.
Right. That's right. You have a built-in excuse this year.
Right.
So if it's really not something you are absolutely must do, then don't do it. Don't put yourself at risk to do something that you really don't want to do anyway. But decide what you are going to do. What things do you want to do? What things you don't want to do, and build your schedule accordingly. Right.
Now, the next couple of strategies kind of go together as well. So build a little bit of R&R in your day.
Right.
That may include, that was number 7. Number 8 is, taking a hot bath or shower. So, do something that is relaxing, something that de-stresses you. And something that can, calm you and help you relax.
Right. And number 9, I don't know how many times this has to be said, but I think this year, the idea that you have to exercise, that you must move your body, it has never been more relevant, and it's never been more ubiquitous, that you have to move your body. You have to exercise. And people aren't doing it. Enough people aren't doing it. More people are starting to, but you've got to get out and move. I think that's probably one of the most important things. I would have put that first. You have to get out and move.
Right. And again, kind of going along with that one straight to the number 10, change your scenery.
Yeah.
Go outside. We did a
Go somewhere
podcast
else.
a few months ago on, bathing outdoors, that quote, bathing in the woods.
Yeah.
But basically we're talking about just being outside in the green and breathing the fresh air and experiencing that. And just by being outside makes you feel better.
Right. Right.
So yeah, it's great when you can jog on a treadmill or you can go into the gym and exercise and stuff. But take a little bit of time and go outside and walk, or just spend some time in nature if it's close enough to you.
Yeah. And especially this year, because the air is going to be a lot safer outside than inside.
Absolutely.
So get outside and breathe that air, rather than the air you're breathing inside these rooms. So yeah, change your scenery. Take a nap.
Number 11, yep. Take a nap.
If you're tired, sleep. My goodness. Well, don't keep pushing yourself. If you need a rest, take a rest. Take a nap, or at least take a rest, but learn how to relax.
Right.
Whether it's with a nap or some other way, just sitting quietly in a chair.
Right.
Just give your body a rest, get up and get going again.
Right. And as it's getting cold, this is one of those little recommendations that's just it's just a simple little thing. If you're cold, if it's chilly outside and everything, just a warm drink of whether it's a hot tea or something, it does trigger relaxation, especially if it doesn't have caffeine or
Right.
But just a warm tea or a warm drink is going to help calm you and just soothe some of that stress that you're experiencing.
Right. Hold on to the mug for a while. Take the mug like they do on TV, right? Just hold on to that mug, and warmth relaxes, like a warm shower or a warm bath. A warm mug, warm up your hands. That will help you to relax.
Right.
Okay? So hold on to that mug. Don't just drink it. Hold on to it. Okay.
Number 13.
I don't know what I would do. How do you
This is a tough one because it goes back to exactly what you were talking about a bit ago, and that is who is considered to be in your bubble. Because number 13 is hug someone if you're quarantining with them. And so if there are people that you are around all the time, people who you're constantly exposed to anyways, that physical contact is soothing. So hugging someone, just that kind of physical contact is really helpful to relieve stress and anxiety and lowers your blood pressure and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, find somebody to hug, but be careful. Okay, we have a dear friend who has a birthday this month, but she's a healthcare worker, so I'd love to see her and give her a hug, but I don't know whether I should this year or not. So we will have to figure out some other way to express those feelings.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you're tied up in knots, I never get tied up in knots, so this is a very strange thing for me. This is kind of a different thing because much of what we talk about during the pandemic is sadness and fatigue. But we also can have negative feelings that arouse us, that anger and frustration and that sort of stuff. So remember, that too can happen. And so what we have to do is we have to find a way to expend that energy, either through exercise. That's one way to do it, but it's not the only way to do it. You'll have to do, go turn out the lights and do a happy dance in the dark, do something to get rid of that pent up energy, pent up frustration. Don't let it seep into your body and damage you.
Right. Yeah. So being, finding creative ways to release some of that. So it could be baking. It could be, drawing or painting or dancing or singing or lots of different things just to release some of that pent up energy, that stress induced energy.
If you have to go into the shower and scream, just tell your neighbors that everything's okay, but you just need to, you just need to scream. You just need to get it out somehow. Don't let it accumulate is the important thing. You got to release that stuff. Okay?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Find ways to do it. And you're going to have to find your own way. I've tried over the course of my lifetime, I've tried many things to relax. Most of them don't work. Okay. But over time, I have found a few things that do work for me. Not everything is going to work for everybody. Some people find great relaxation in painting pictures.
Yeah.
I, I don't. I mean, I need a punching bag. I don't get rid of stress by doing quiet things. I get rid of stress by doing active things. You have to discover what works for you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And speaking of the last one, number 15.
Perfect. Yeah.
Meditating is really good, as a really good way for dealing with stress and frustration and all of those things. It's really difficult for some people to do that, though. That stillness, that calmness that you have to exercise to meditate properly is really difficult for some people. And so, there are ways to kind of work around that with guided meditations and those kinds of things. But, it's really hard. So, but try it. As you said, it's important to experiment and explore some of these different strategies just to see what's going to work best for you.
Right. I think meditation is probably one of the most important things we can do, but it's a skill. You're not going to sit down and meditate. It's just like you're not going to walk up and hit a golf ball 300 yards or 300 feet the first time you swing a golf club. It's a skill that you have to learn. And meditation has a bad reputation among a lot of people because they associate it with hippies and tree hugging and silly things that you see on TV. Meditation takes many, many forms. For example, prayer. People who pray, that's a form of meditation.
Sure.
Okay. Some people call it prayer and some people call it meditation, but prayer is a form of my mother was a very devout Catholic, and she used to say a rosary. For those of you who know what it is. And my mother was meditating during that time. That was her quiet time. She was meditating. She didn't know it. She didn't call it that,
right,
but that's what she was doing. And so find what works for you. Call it whatever you want, but learn how to meditate. And there's something we call meditation stamina. You're not going to meditate for 10 minutes the first time you do it. You might only be able to meditate for 30 or 50 or 80 seconds.
Right.
Meditate as long as you can and build the skill as you go. Okay. But learn how to get to calm, learn how to get to quiet, learn how to clear your head. It's not going to work long, and you're not going to be able to do it a long time for several minutes the first time you try it, but over time you get better at it. But you have to learn how to quiet your brain.
Absolutely. So again, check out the article, the column that we posted in the show notes. It's there's lots of, you can kind of go through all 15 again and look at some of the specifics that the author mentions. But but the bottom line really is just find what works for you and just make sure that you spend some time dealing with and resolving some of that stress.
That's right. Be mindful. Have a plan what this month is going to look like. We call it mindfulness. We call it mindfulness, but just have a good plan. Be careful, and spend some time keeping yourself calm. It's going to be a stressful month. January is going to be a stressful month. So do the things you need to do to keep yourself calm and to keep your life organized. We'll get through the next 2 months. The vaccine is around the corner. 2021 is going to look very different. I think we're seeing the beginning of the beginning, at least as Winston Churchill said. It's not the beginning of the end, but it's the beginning of the beginning. And I think 2021 will look very different than 2020 did. So, be optimistic.
Absolutely. So, all right. Well, that then is it for today. Until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, and forget to be afraid.